Look like Amber Cox has leaked some information to Fever insiders, letting them know the plans for the roster for the 2026 season.
The Indiana Fever just dropped a bombshell that has the entire WNBA world buzzing. And if you're a Caitlin Clark fan, you need to hear this right now. GM Amber Cox sat down with reporters this week and basically laid out a blueprint that could either transform the Fever into championship contenders or blow up in their faces. We're talking aggressive roster moves, international scouting missions, cryptic social media posts from their star guard, and a future that hinges on one massive question. Can they keep their core together while chasing a title? Buckle up, because what you're about...
Amber Cox called up Adam Sandler in the movie Hustle and said, hey, we need some scouts overseas.
Here is going to change everything you thought you knew about Indiana's plans for next season. So here's the deal. Amber Cox, the woman calling the shots in Indianapolis, spoke to the Indy Star's Chloe Peterson, and she didn't hold back. She called this the most important offseason in franchise history. Not one of the most important, the most important. And when a general manager says something like that, you bet...
All right, so Amber Cox ended up getting the question asked to her. With all the things going on with the CBA, you're sitting in the dark. How do they prepare? How do you prepare specifically for off-season events they don't have information on, right? Because they are in the dark. They don't know what's going to happen. We don't even know if 2020...
I believe there's smoke behind the fire. The message was clear. The Fever are done developing. They're not rebuilding anymore. They're not playing the patience game. When you've got Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston on the same roster, you don't sit around waiting for the pieces to magically fall into place. You go all in. You make moves. You take risks. And that's exactly what Cox is planning to do. But here's where it gets complicated. The WNBA is in the middle of...
I think she was just saying how Kelsey Mitchell is their #1 priority, same as this year, right? In my opinion, man, I think the main thing that they need to focus on after getting your core back, I think you need to focus on a stretch 4 or a stretch 5. If you could get 2 of them, that would be grand. But a defensive stretch 4, stretch 5, that would be
one of the most chaotic off seasons in recent memory. The CBA negotiations are still up in the air, which means teams like the Fever are essentially flying blind. They don't know what the salary cap is going to look like. They don't know if the core years rule, the thing that lets teams lock down star players with supermax contracts, is even going to exist next season. Cox admitted they're sitting in the dark, and that's a terrifying place to be when you're trying to build a championship team. But instead of panicking, she's taking the approach of controlling the controllables. That means scouting harder than ever, planning for every possible scenario, and making sure that when the dust settles, the Fever are ready to strike. And strike they will, because the first name on their priority list is Kelsey Mitchell. Let me repeat that. Kelsey Mitchell is their #1 priority. Not a backup plan. Not a maybe. She's the top target, and Cox said it herself. This isn't speculation or rumors from anonymous sources. This is coming straight from the top. And it makes sense when you think about what Mitchell did when Caitlin Clark went down with an injury. She didn't just step up. She exploded. Her numbers skyrocketed. She carried the offense night after night and proved she's not just a complimentary piece. She's a legitimate star in her own right. The problem? Every other team in the league saw it too. Chicago's got their eyes on her. Atlanta's been making calls. Even the new Portland franchise is circling. Mitchell is an unrestricted free agent, which means she can go wherever she wants. And the Fever now have a decision that could define their next 5 years. Do they offer Kelsey Mitchell a supermax deal and lock her down? Or do they save that money to bring in veterans who can fill out the roster? Because here's the thing. Indiana only has 3 players officially under contract for next season. 3. Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Michaela Timpson. That's it. Everyone else is up in the air. Lexi Hall is a restricted free agent. Sophie Cunningham is unrestricted. The entire roster could look completely different by the time training camp rolls around. And while that kind of flexibility is exciting, it's also terrifying because one wrong move could set this franchise back years. But Cox isn't panicking. She said they're planning as much as they can, and when things roll out, they'll be ready to go. That sounds like a safe cookie-cutter GM answer, but if you read between the lines, you can tell she's being careful not to tip her hand. Because this offseason isn't just about resigning players. It's about reshaping the entire system around Caitlin Clark. The Fever finally got a glimpse of what happens when Clark is healthy and surrounded by shooters. The offense flows, the spacing improves, the energy changes, everything clicks. And now they're building on that foundation by focusing on players who fit the system. Cox didn't name names, but she dropped a huge clue when she said they're not chasing big names. They're chasing the right ones. That's GM speak for we're not trying to sign the flashiest free agents. We're looking for veterans who can defend, rebound, and hit shots when defenses collapse on Clark and Boston.
So basically, Amber Cox came back and said, I think we control the controllables, right? You start prepping for, obviously, the college season, for what's going on internationally, planning out our scouting, both domestically and internationally.
And that's where the international scouting comes into play. Cox confirmed that the Fever have been watching games in Europe and Asia, tracking at least 2 international guards who can shoot and defend. Names haven't been leaked yet, but sources close to the team say they're serious about adding length and defense to the perimeter. This is the first time in years that Indiana has actually sounded like they have a real plan, and it's all centered around taking the pressure off Caitlin Clark. Because let's be honest, you can't expect her to play 38 minutes a night, carry the ball up the court, score 25 points, and guard the other team's best player. That's a recipe for burnout. Cox admitted they over-relied on Clark and Boston at times, and it exposed their depth issues. She said when you've got 2 stars that young, it's tempting to run everything through them. But to win big, you've got to balance that out. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Kelsey Mitchell's cryptic Instagram post. Right after Cox's comments dropped, Mitchell posted a message that sent fans into full-on detective mode. She wrote about grief, survival mode, and hunting, but the part that really got people talking was the ending. 0 gone. Her jersey number is 0. So what does that mean? Is she saying she's leaving Indiana? Is she going dark for the offseason? Nobody knows for sure, but it sure sounds like someone who's weighing her options. And that's where the Caitlin Clark factor comes back into the picture. Mitchell's breakout season happened while Clark was sidelined. She got more touches, more shots, more freedom to run the show. But once Clark comes back next year, that spotlight's going right back to her. And let's be real, no one wants to go from being the star to being the second option. Mitchell is too good for that not to cross her mind. If she stays, it's because she believes this team can win a championship. If she leaves, it's about getting the opportunity to lead her own team somewhere else. And that's what makes this offseason so fascinating. Cox knows losing Mitchell would hurt, but she also knows Caitlin Clark is the centerpiece now. Everything is being built around her. The system, the playbook, the scouting approach. It's all designed to maximize Clark's strengths. Cox revealed they're designing personalized development plans for each player, which is code for their customizing off-season training to fit Clark's game. That means better spacing, more pick-and-roll chemistry with Boston, and more help defense, so she doesn't have to guard elite scorers every single night. Clark doesn't need to do everything. She needs the right teammates to do their part. And if the Fever get this offseason right, they're not just going to be a playoff team. They're going to be a legitimate contender. But here's the twist. If the CBA chaos drags on, all of this planning could mean absolutely nothing. Right now, No one knows what the salary structure is going to look like. If the core years rule disappears, players like Mitchell could walk without any restrictions. The entire free agency system could get flipped upside down, and teams that thought they were in control could suddenly find themselves scrambling. Cox is in a race against time, trying to balance contracts, scout new talent, and keep the chemistry that got them this far. And on top of all that, she's got to manage Caitlin Clark's rehab and off-season plans, which are a huge part of the strategy. Whether Clark is doing speaking events, training, or resting, she's still the face of this franchise. Cox called this the most important off-season yet because this is the moment that decides whether the Fever stay promising or finally start winning championships. And they're not just thinking about winning in Indiana. They're thinking global. Cox hinted that international talent could be part of the mix, which makes perfect sense when you consider the WNBA is possibly expanding to China soon. Building those connections early gives the Fever leverage. She said they're watching what's happening globally because there's too much talent overseas to ignore. Translation: if the WNBA's partnership in China takes off, expect Indiana to be one of the first teams to benefit. And that ties directly back to Caitlin Clark's global marketability. If the league starts hosting exhibition games in Asia, who do you think they're sending? Exactly, Caitlin Clark. The Fever's brand is built around her now, and the league knows it. This off-season isn't just about winning games. It's about preparing for an international spotlight. Cox even mentioned they're reviewing international travel logistics as part of next season's plans. That's not random corporate jargon. That's code for we might be playing overseas. So while fans are arguing about free agency on social media, the Fever are quietly positioning themselves to become the global face of the WNBA. And they've got the financial backing to make it happen. The ownership group knows they've got something special. Home games sold out. TV ratings broke records. Merchandise flew off the shelves. That gives them leverage to spend. And Cox said the ownership is committed to investing in infrastructure, talent, player recovery tech, better travel accommodations, and yes, finally getting consistent charter flights. She also mentioned more marketing opportunities for players. Expect to see Clark, Boston, and others doing local events and brand partnerships during the off-season, not just national campaigns. This is part of a bigger plan to make the Fever not just a team, but a brand. And here's the kicker. Cox hinted that Caitlin Clark will have a big say in all of these plans. She said they involve their leaders in everything, because they've earned that. Translation: Caitlin gets a seat at the table now. And honestly, she's earned it. Her popularity literally saved the WNBA's ratings. You think they're not going to let her voice shape the future? Of course they are. So when people ask what the Fever's off-season plans are, the answer is actually pretty simple. Resign Kelsey Mitchell if possible. Add veteran defense and shooting. Expand the brand globally. Keep Caitlin Clark healthy, rested, and happy. It's not rocket science. It's just about execution. But execution is everything, and that's where the pressure mounts. Head coach Stephanie White gave some safe, diplomatic responses when asked about the future, saying she's focusing on being present and taking it one day at a time. But let's be honest, that's not the energy of a coach who's confident about next season's roster. White knows the pressure is coming. If the Fever don't win next year with Clark, Boston, and possibly Mitchell under contract, there are no more excuses. The hot seat gets very hot very fast. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark's off-season training is taking a surprising turn. Sources say her off-season might not involve much WNBA contact work early on. Instead, she's focusing on a new shooting efficiency program that uses motion sensors to track release speed and shot selection. The goal is to cut out wasted motion, so she can hit those off-balance threes even faster. This isn't about reinventing her. It's about sharpening what's already elite. And the Fever love it because her ability to space the floor changes everything. When she's on, the paint opens for Boston. When she's off, the whole offense clogs. Expect Indiana to bring in a shooting coach full-time, possibly someone from the men's college game, to work exclusively with her and the guards. Cox also confirmed the team will be hosting a mini camp strictly focused on chemistry between Clark, Boston, and the Wings. That means extra reps for Michaela Timpson, Sophie Cunningham, and whoever they bring in at small forward. All of this is building toward one goal: turning the Fever from a promising young team into a legitimate championship contender. And if they nail this offseason, we might be talking about the next great WNBA dynasty. So what do you think? Should the Fever give Kelsey Mitchell the Supermax? Or should they focus on adding veterans around Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe for more straight-up WNBA updates. Because if Indiana gets this right, the league better watch out.